this is Vivica Williams, and you're watching Head to Head. Today, we're talking with Darina Tolkach. She's an advocacy coordinator for the Right to Protection. It's an organization here in Ukraine that works with IDPs, refugees, and other people who need assistance. Today, we want to talk about the situation with IDPs and how they are faring here in Ukraine and what types of help they need. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me, first of all.
Yes. And now, I know the Right to Protection does a lot of advocacy work. What are some of the areas that you work in to help people?
Well, actually, the work of our organization is built in a very specific way. We do work in advocacy, so-called evidence-based advocacy. We have monitoring teams who go specifically to the areas where the biggest numbers of IDPs reside. We identify the basic protection needs and problems those people face, and then this is something that comes to the advocacy priorities. So we know perfectly well how which problems people are facing and which specific areas need our assistance or our intervention. In many cases, the state is not well informed about the situation because the information from the regions is not coming that operatively the way it comes from the monitoring or human rights organizations. So mostly we work on specific issues connected to social and economic rights of IDPs, to the issues connected to their specific and emergency needs, such as humanitarian needs, needs in shelter or housing. And of course, we work on some potential areas that need a state approach or state strategy, such as pensions to the people who are still residing on non-governmentally controlled areas, the problems people face in the so-called gray zone, the zone which is close to the contact lines and where shellings are still in progress. We do work on issues connected to different type of, let's say, social rights, such as education, access to medical care, or other social and economic issues that our clients or beneficiaries regularly face. So
let's talk about where some of the most vulnerable people are located. You were saying the gray zones. Tell us a bit about the situation there and the type of challenges people face.
The biggest problem in the gray zone is very formalistic, because the status of the territories in the gray zone is regulated by one of the legislative acts adopted by the government. And de facto, many territories that are not controlled or controlled by the government are not the way they're perceived by the government.
What do you mean by this?
It means that, for example, a person who is residing in the territory that is de facto controlled by DNR or LNR is not able to become an IDP or get registered as an IDP because formally his locality is registered as the one controlled by the government. So when the person is leaving the territory seeking for a peaceful and secure shelter, he's not formally, or she is not formally able to get registered as an IDP and receive the social assistance from the state. So this is something we're working with regularly. The other issue is, for example, if the locality is considered a non-governmentally controlled village or city, whatever, in the gray zone, but de facto people are under control of the Ukrainian army. They have no access, formal access, to the administrative and social services on the governmentally controlled area. So if you come to for example, to the pension fund and you want to receive your pension, but you're registered in a locality which is considered non-governmentally controlled area, you are not able to do so.
Wow. So as many people think, there's not this direct black and white of this is controlled, this is not controlled. So what are these people doing? What are they able to do?
Well, in most cases, they're just simply sitting where they are. There is a huge problem with the freedom of movement. Right. Because in many cases, people are just not able to leave the locality they live in, the village they live in, for example, because it's blocked from different sides by the militaries of different sides. And for example, in order to receive a medical care, you have to ask for special permission from, for example, from the militaries to exit the locality you are residing in.
Wow. So a big issue we're seeing is the most vulnerable populations being maybe the elderly who need their pensions, or people who need medical care. And these two aspects are very difficult to attain. So what are some legislation that's trying to address this? Or is there legislation trying to address, for example, pension issues?
The pension issues is a big issue, which is very negotiable, and it's causing lots of talks all around, because well, there are different approaches to the issue, but we as an NGO, human rights NGO, we still insist on the fact that the right for the pensions is stipulated by the Article 22 of the Constitution of Ukraine. So it doesn't matter where the person is residing, the government is obliged to develop a strategy or a mechanism in order to provide those people with their property, because pension is considered to be a property. It's not even a social payment. So there is an initiative made by a group of NGOs that was aiming at examining the international experience in this area, and we've actually elaborated a document that is having the possible details to the mechanism for paying the pensions to the people residing in NGCA. But at the same time, there is no political will from the side of the government to adopt such legislation.
So this is based on the examples from other countries that have been in similar situations.
Yes.
What do you have an idea of how many people, how many pensioners are affected by this issue?
Well, of course, we cannot give exact numbers, but we are talking about over 2 million of people who are not able to access pensions. At the same time, we do not know how the composition of the population changed within the recent three years of the conflict. So there's also a big issue. Even if any mechanism is adopted, there's also a big issue for those pensioners who are not mobile, because any mechanism would oblige them to go to the governmentally controlled area and get registered, then get the payments and so on. But the majority of pensioners, from the information we're receiving from our colleagues from humanitarian organizations left on NGCA, are the immobile pensioners.
Mm-hmm. And so what's being done now to help them with, we look at everyday living needs if they can't access pensions?
Well, it's a very hard question, because, as you know, a very limited number of civil society organizations, I mean, not even civil society organizations, but international humanitarian organizations, are having access to the non-governmentally controlled areas. And only few of them have an opportunity at least to monitor the situation or to provide the basic humanitarian needs of those people.
But in the gray zone?
In the gray zone, it's easier. At the same time, now more and more organizations are operating there. For example, R2P is, except of monitoring, we have a special, let's say, social component. When we identify a very vulnerable situation of a person, we can provide a one-time social assistance, monetary assistance to the person in order to meet the most emergent need of this person.
For example,
For example, it's about, well, clothes for children. For example, we see a lot of situations when children are not able to attend educational entities because they do not simply have warm clothes, and so they do not go there in winter time. So this is something that we can do on a one-time manner, but at least it's you know, providing the opportunity to people to meet their basic needs.
Okay, so based on what we're seeing here, there's not just with the vulnerable population, but also another issue we talked about briefly was with home destruction of property. So what's being done about this situation? What's the issues going on with this?
Well, in frames of advocacy efforts, of course, many negotiations and many talks are around the compensation mechanism or any type of mechanism that would meet the basic right of people for property and housing. At the same time, there's another approach we are actually employing. This is the so-called strategic litigation approach. We have over 11 or 12 cases, strategic cases from people who got their homes being destroyed or hardly damaged. They applied for legal assistance to our lawyers, and actually recently we won 2 cases. One case have won about 800,000 hryvnias compensation, and the second have won about over 2 million of hryvnias compensation. The biggest problem with this approach is that having a successful decision made by the court is not enough to receive the compensation itself, because all the approaches employed by lawyers are dying on the execution stage.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, this is an issue in general here in Ukraine.
So the execution of this type of decisions is a very hard story because it lacks the budgetary line that would provide the funds for such decisions and for execution of such decisions in favor of IDPs.
Okay. Well, this is then, it's a moral victory and a start, maybe just a start in the right step, and recognizing that people need to be compensated for their loss. I want to thank you so much for being with us today, and we will definitely be talking with you a bit more about some of the developments going on in this area with helping IDPs and trying to show more about some of the issues people are having there.
Thank you. Thank you for having this conversation.
Thank you. This is Vivica Williams with Head to Head. Today we spoke with Darina Tolkach, an advocacy coordinator for Right to Protection. Thank you and have a great day.